We're back with 3 more roguelikes to add to the tier wall, and this week's picks are Tape to Tape, Emberward, and Slay the Spire, plus another movement in the rankings. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm JammyGiraffe, the English idiot and roguelike addict. We're back with the tier wall today, a tier list that evolves over time based on arguments, DLCs, improvements, patches, and much, much more. We have 3 games to add today, 2 of which will be far lesser known, but one will be very well known, as I've said, with Slay the Spire. But before we get into that, with a slight change to the format as of late, let's start off with a movement. So the movement in question is Darkest Dungeon. There have been a few comments talking about how I may have been, let's say, a little harsh, as I said. The game doesn't feel as fun to me, and I don't feel as rewarded in pushing further to progress, and there aren't as many unlocks in my opinion. But I do think with more games coming onto the Roguelike Tier Wall, that it does definitely deserve a better placing, because it is better than some of the other games below it. It holds a stronger place in roguelike history in a way, for what it did for kind of turn-based games, I think. So, you know, one of the comments in particular, this one here from Berserker de Jour, said, I think Darkest Dungeon should be higher, with the idea that it's a bit geared towards players who actively want that brutal challenge like Dark Souls, and are fine with working against a constant series of unfortunate events. And while its DLC, The Crimson Court, added a lot of depth to it, I know it's a little subjective. I've been playing roguelikes for a hot minute, but that's kind of the point. Once you dump hours into the genre, the appeal of a roguelike that is definitely beatable but is also brutal has some appeal. So I do get the point here, and I think Berserker de Jour, you kind of make the best point amongst most of the comments around this. So as a result, okay, I'm going to move up Darkest Dungeon. We're going to put Darkest Dungeon here. Right, it in my opinion belongs to be in the rare area. I wouldn't want to be putting this any higher than rare, in my opinion. It gives there being more room for other games below it by us putting it in the higher end of rare, but the fact that it isn't as fun to play, I don't feel as much of an incentive to push on, based on the rewards that you get with Darkest Dungeon. So I'm not comfortable going higher than that, but higher up in rare, but it's definitely not an epic in my opinion. So in short, that's where it's going to end up for now. But now let's move on to the 3 games to be reviewed today. Let's start with Tape to Tape. So Tape to Tape is very simply an ice hockey roguelike, published and developed by Excellent Rectangle. During the game, you choose a captain and you kind of craft your team of ragtag hockey players, giving them different talents and abilities, from curving the puck to wearing armor to check players harder and not be able to push it off your spot, to be able to have the puck on a yo-yo so you can hit it away and bring it back to you to jerk out players, speed dashes, or even bribing the ref so that the ref can check players, or the ref can throw you the puck when at the start of the game, or drops. Think of the game like it's kind of like a roguelike version of NBA Street, Volume 2, of course, where you kind of compete in ever-increasing opponents, and you gain either new players or upgrades to those players as you defeat more. There's a heavy reliance on this game around the comedy aspect, and it does have some funny moments, I believe. The ice hockey itself only has so many controls. You know, don't assume that this is NHL 24 from EA. The skill in this is not so much the play as the team building. Don't get me wrong, you know, you can play well, but it's far more about how you build your team, you know, what bonuses you get, what stats you play around. You know, you can pass, you can shoot, you can check, but there's not that much else extra you can do. And it should be noted, this game is in early access, but has been getting pretty decent reviews, sitting around 90% on Steam. The roguelike elements to this are not overly unique. You have to, after every fight, you have to kind of choose your path. I completed a run on the second try, and then did a little upgrading and found myself wondering what was really different in that next run. It's clear after you finish a run that the game needs more content. I mean, even when you do win a competition against somebody, you only have like 2 choices of where to go next, and that's if that you only have 2 choices next. But the content that is there will keep you entertained for a good, you know, 5 to 10 hours maybe, and you will have some chuckles along the way. My advice with this one is really only get it if you are, you know, a true roguelike collector or a lover of ice hockey, or it has a steep discount, because, you know, if you're getting this below a tenner or something, then it's probably worth giving it a go. But watch this space. Like I said, this is early access. This could easily grow with more content, more options during the game, more unlocks, because I just found that the replayability of it was pretty low. As a result, I think this is being slapped down here in common for now. But who knows, when this is fully released, it might kind of jump up the ranks. It might really improve, but I can't put it above here right now. It wouldn't be fair. So, moving on, let's talk about another game in early access, actually, Emberward. Now, as I said, I should firstly say this is in early access, but it is worth noting the developer and publisher, Refik Games, I think it is, are very, very active. Having done another update just over a week ago, adding a whole nother stage. So they're quite fast moving in this early access, it does seem. So Emberward is a tower defense game with a little sprinkle of Tetris blocks put into it, on a kind of roguelike base, but not to mention there being some deck building in there too. The premise being very much a traditional tower defense game. However, you use Tetris blocks to steer the enemy's line of approach. So you can steer where they're going to have to go to then create yourself little, you know, gullies of death, if you like. Each building phase, the enemies begin to march your way. Before the enemies begin to march your way, you can spend gold to play cards. Those cards being the Tetris blocks, and you can spend gold to place your towers. Now, the Tetris blocks themselves, like I said, can be placed to force enemies in one direction or another, or block paths altogether, so it forces them to go a longer route round. And the blocks themselves are what you can place the towers on. You can't just place towers anywhere. They have to be on the blocks or any of the existing kind of blocks or terrain that's there. And these attacking towers, you know, there's quite a variety. You know, at the start of the run, you're given 3 different sets of towers and Tetris pieces to choose from to start building your deck. And those towers have a decent variety of shapes and sizes, as well as having elemental attacks. You know, fire, ice, lightning, poison, arcane, name a few. You're then given a relic to go along with those towers and Tetris pieces, and that relic kind of gives you like a passive power up that might yield you more money per monster, increase poison damage, you know, some kind of effect like that. So when you're picking your Tetris pieces and towers from the set of 3, you do have the ability to see what 5 relics you're going to be able to pick from, so that you start off with at least some idea of the synergy you want to go down. So there is a lot of synergies to how you can play and how you can build your deck, as you should expect in a roguelike. It's worth saying as well, the Tetris blocks themselves can be augmented through the game. So you can have, you know, let's say the common T-shaped Tetris block, but you can then add on to one of the spaces on top of that block a power up, so that when you place a tower upon it, it might increase the range of that tower or the attack of that tower, or it might give it poison effects, whatever that might be. So as you progress through the game and you're building your deck, you can change the cards, if you like, within that. The game also has many different stages. Each stage you get, you know, a usual choice of where you go next after you defeat that stage. And the choices are fairly wide. You get to have shops, barracks, which give you the ability to like pick a challenge, which if you do that challenge, you get a reward for doing that. A normal kind of battle stage where you can actually see the shape of the Tetris piece that you'll get after defeating that stage, and whether you might get a relic to go with it as well. You can up the challenge with certain stages where there are corrupted stages, which have areas that you can't place a block, or if you place a block there, you can place it there, but you can't put towers on it because it's on fire. That's an example. As you progress, as expected, the difficulty does increase. The ramp isn't too bad. My first run, I did actually manage to complete the whole of the first stage on my very first run. However, the second stage posed a much harder challenge. There are currently 3 stages, and when I say a stage, it's like a map that has multiple levels, don't get me wrong. So it's a different biome, if you like. They've just, as I said earlier, done a patch about a week ago which added the 3rd stage, which is like ice based, and it has ice and wind on the stage itself. For those of you that also like a challenge, or maybe don't like a challenge, there's a hard mode and a casual mode as well. Plus, you can choose from a different character at the start of the game, which augments it even further. So I really feel that the inspirations that this game has taken it down a really good path, where you can choose characters, you can choose your deck, you can choose the different synergies you want to go down. You have a good strategic ability to affect what's going on in quite a big way. Now, I will say I don't think there are enough different unlocks yet, but like I said, it's early access. And one of the things that's really underappreciated with this game is how gorgeous it is. I think it looks incredibly clean. The aesthetic is really clear, which I really appreciate. Now, when I look at the wall, so I look at this tier wall and consider where this needs to go, something that needs to be taken into consideration is its genre. There haven't been that many well executed kind of roguelike tower defense games of this style, and I think that gives it some points on this board, in my opinion. I've said again, it is early access, so it has some room for improvement, but from the hours that I've put into this already, I think it justifies a placement just at the bottom end of rare. I think this is a really positive spot for it. It has room to improve, and I do think that this could climb the ranks quite quickly with some additional content, essentially. So, moving on finally to Slay the Spire. Now, I know some of you have been waiting for this one, so please bear with me. But Slay the Spire, if you don't know already, is quite possibly the roguelike deck builder. that has spawned and inspired so many kind of lesser deck building darlings, if you like. This is truly one that kind of began it all in terms of deck builders, in my opinion. Slay the Spire is developed and published by Megacrit, with Slay the Spire 2 on the horizon as well. You begin the game with, well, not begin the game. The game has 4 characters to choose from after unlocking them. It's got over 350 cards, 200 items, 50 unique different combat encounters, and over 50 different events. The basic idea is that as one of the heroes, you must climb the spire and kill the final kind of rotating boss, defeating enemies and building your deck as you go. Each hero has its kind of own set of cards and focuses. So the Ironclad built around kind of strength and defense stacking and buffing, to kind of gather steam, if you like. The Silent is built around drawing a lot of low cost, low damage cards to eat away, with synergies around kind of poison, to nip away with damage over time effects. The Defect is built around a kind of unique orb generation mechanic, which you generate different types of orbs which give you different passive effects at the end of each round, as well as being able to use those orbs as consumables to get even bigger benefits. And then finally you get the Watcher, which is built around having a unique mechanic that involves stances. Different stances boost either defense or attack, and trade off for different negative effects. So as an example, you can be in a wrath state, you do additional damage, but you also take additional damage. But every time you exit a stance, you'll get an additional benefit. So the uniqueness and the beautiful balance that they've managed to put behind these different characters is one of the real joys of this game. Personal favorite is the Silent. But every battle, you also choose your next path, with many routes to take. You can have events, battles, you can go to a camp where you get to rest to gain some health back or upgrade a card. And each battle, you gain a card from a selection of typically 3 plus gold, and maybe a potion or a relic when you win. So every single battle gives you something, which is really beneficial to the kind of building mechanic in this game, and the way that you can synergize and strategize around your deck. I think it has so much ability and thought around wanting to make sure that you can build your deck in the right way, which is really important. There are a lot of other kind of deck builders that don't give you that same level of customization. We went through Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers recently, and one of the things I said about that is I don't really feel like you can make an effect on it. In addition to being able to get cards and potions and gold, you also get relics, as I mentioned, and the relics are really where the kind of augmentation can go up a notch, because you can have a huge amount of relics, and these give you different like passive boosts, such as gaining block every 3 attacks, drawing extra cards, your block not going away after a battle, after a turn, I should say. There's a huge list of them, and you can kind of chop and change which you choose. Often it's very beneficial to skip taking a relic if it wouldn't benefit your particular build, I think. During combat itself, it's obviously a turn-based game, but typically you can see the expected action of the opponent. So you can see whether they're planning on attacking, how much damage they're actually going to do, or whether they're going to block or buff or debuff you. All can be seen for the most part. And at least most of the time, you're able to then use the cards in your hand to be able to counter that, or choose whether maybe you want to take that hit because you can do enough damage to them that it's beneficial. There's a lot of kind of risk reward every turn you take, and I think that's really where the kind of beauty of this game comes in both, yes, the strategy of building your your deck, but also the strategy that you can play during your turn based on how expansive the card mechanics are. There's a huge amount of buffs and debuffs and different mechanics that the cards give you that really become fun to play around. There's a lot of different ways you can build a deck. I don't think there's, you know, a simple one way to win in this. There's many different ways. I've had some really interesting builds, and Slay the Spire really does have the ultimate replay value as well, because once you do defeat the boss at the end, you can then ascend. When you ascend, it basically means you can do another run now, but with Ascension level 1, which will give a difficulty modifier. You beat Ascension level 1, you can go to Ascension level 2, which gives you the same difficulty modifier from 1, but adds another one. And this goes all the way up to, well, A20 as it's called, Ascension 20, where there's an actual achievement for getting that far. And it really scales in difficulty as you go through the ascensions, as you can expect. It gets really quite crazy. And Slay the Spire has been out for a very long time now. It's also had some brilliant mods. So there's a community of modders that love Slay the Spire, just adding huge amounts of relics, things like that. But there's even a mod called Slay the Spire Downfall, which is a community mod that is free, and it even adds a 5th character. So look, all in all, I could talk about this game for hours. Similar to Binding of Isaac, I really could. It's one of the OGs in terms of the roguelike space, and I think there really is only one place for this. It needs to be high up, and it simply has to creep into the legendary territory. As I look down the walls, some of the other deck builders wouldn't even exist without this game. So it needs to sit in that legendary territory. For me, only just inside though. So I'm going to slap it here. This is where it belongs. Please give me your feedback, give me your comments. I know some of you would quite profusely argue that it should be even higher, or maybe I'm thinking of one individual is going to say it definitely shouldn't be in the legendary spot. But please give me your arguments. Let me know where it should be. So those are the 3 roguelikes added to the tier wall today. If you made it this far, thank you again. Please drop a subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a like. It all helps me as I try and grow this YouTube channel. Please also come check me out on Twitch. So I stream on Tuesdays and Fridays from about 8:30 UK time. Roguelikes to start, and then we tend to move into some community games, but I'm planning on doing a bit more roguelike content, particularly on the Tuesday. Also, please jump into the Discord. There's a lot of roguelike lovers in there. The description and everything will be below, so that you can come and join the Discord and give your arguments of what you think should be reviewed or should be moved. Please give me suggestions of other roguelikes that maybe I don't know of that I should give a go. There's still a long list to go through, don't get me wrong. And also watch this space. I'm going to be making another tier wall around survival settlement kind of games. That's the plan. Please spread the word of the channel, and lots of love, lots of positivity. Jammy out.